Hello again, 6th graders. We're going to finish the Anne Frank book today. I know some of you already have. I can tell you finished your packets or you told me about it, but if you haven't, today's the day. Now again, it does not end with her getting arrested because she doesn't write about that. She never gets the chance to do that. Her diary is left in the annex and she goes to the concentration camp. But we will read the afterword, which gives us more information about that. So before we move on, I want to do number 13. We're going to put Anne. Anne is the one that had the root canal. We did 14 in my previous video, and then we'll get to 15 and 16 and 17 today. The other one, page 100, 18 and on, we won't do until we've read the afterword. All right, so I'm doing this a little bit differently today, so if you can be patient. We're starting on the bottom of 259. Here's the date. I will make this picture bigger once I start.
Saturday, 15 July 1944. Dear Kitty, we've had a book from the library with the challenging title of What Do You Think of the Modern Young Girl? I want to talk about this subject today. The author of this book criticizes the youth of today from top to toe, without, however, condemning the whole of the young brigade as incapable of anything good. On the contrary, she is rather of the opinion that if young people wished, they have it in their hands to make a bigger, more beautiful, and better world, but that they occupy themselves with superficial things, without giving a thought to real beauty. In some passages, the writer gave me very much the feeling she was directing her criticism at me, and that's why I want to lay myself completely bare to you for once, and defend myself against this attack. I have one outstanding trait in my character, which must strike anyone who knows me for any length of time, and that is my knowledge of myself. I can watch myself and my actions just like an outsider. The Anna of every day I can face entirely without prejudice, without making excuses for her, and watch what's good and what's bad about her. This self-consciousness haunts me, and every time I open my mouth, I know as soon as I've spoken whether that ought to have been different or that was right as it was. There are so many things about myself that I condemn, I couldn't begin to name them all. I understand more and more how true Daddy's words were when he said, all children must look after their own upbringing. Parents can only give good advice or put them on the right path, but the final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands. In addition to this, I have lots of courage. I always feel so strong and as if I can bear a great deal. I feel so free and so young. I was glad when I first realized it, because I don't think I shall easily bow down before the blows that inevitably come to everyone. But I've talked about these things so often before. Now I want to come to the chapter of Daddy and Mummy Don't Understand Me. Daddy and Mummy have always thoroughly spoiled me, were sweet to me, defended me, and have done all that parents could do. And yet I felt so terribly lonely for a long time, so left out, neglected, and misunderstood. Daddy tried all he could to check my rebellious spirit, but it was no use. I had cured myself by seeing for myself what was wrong in my behavior and keeping it before my eyes. How is it that Daddy was never any support to me in my struggle? Why did he completely miss the mark when he wanted to offer me a helping hand? Daddy tried the wrong methods. He always talked to me as a child who was going through difficult phases. It sounds crazy, because Daddy's the only one who has always taken me into his confidence, and no one but Daddy has given me the feeling that I'm sensible. But there's one thing he's omitted. You see, he hasn't realized that, for me, the fight to get on top was more important than all else. I didn't want to hear about symptoms of your age, or other girls, or it wears off by itself. I didn't want to be treated as a girl like all others, but as Anna on her own merits. Pim didn't understand that. For that matter, I can't confide in anyone, unless they tell me a lot about themselves. And as I know very little about Pim, I don't feel that I can tread upon more intimate ground with him. Pim always takes up the older, fatherly attitude, tells me that he too has had similar passing tendencies. But still he's not able to feel with me like a friend, however hard he tries. These things have made me never mention my views on life, nor my well-considered theories to anyone but my diary, and occasionally to Margot. I concealed from Daddy everything that perturbed him. I never shared my ideals with him. I was aware of the fact that I was pushing him away from me. I couldn't do anything else. I have acted entirely according to my feelings, but I have acted in the way that was best for my peace of mind. Because I should completely lose my repose and self-confidence, which I had built up so shakily, if, at this stage, I were to accept criticisms of my half-completed task. And I can't do that, even from Pym, although it sounds very hard. For not only have I not shared my secret thoughts with Pym, but I have often pushed him even further from me by my irritability.
This ends side 1 of cassette 6. Please turn the cassette over and start side 2 from the same point.
This is a point that I think a lot about. Why is it that Pym annoys me? So much so that I can hardly bear him teaching me, that his affectionate ways strike me as being put on, that I want to be left in peace, and would really prefer it if he dropped me a bit, until I feel more certain in my attitude towards him. Because I still have a gnawing feeling of guilt over that horrible letter that I dared to write him when I was so wound up. Oh, how hard it is to be really strong and brave in every way. Yet this was not my greatest disappointment. No, I ponder far more over Pater than Daddy. I know very well that I conquered him instead of he conquering me. I created an image of him in my mind, pictured him as a quiet, sensitive, lovable boy who needed affection and friendship. I needed a living person to whom I could pour out my heart. I wanted a friend who'd help to put me on the right road. I achieved what I wanted, and slowly but surely I drew him towards me. Finally, when I had made him feel friendly, automatically developed into an intimacy, which on second thought I don't think I ought to have allowed. We talked about the most private things, and yet up till now we have never touched on those things that filled and still fill my heart and soul. I still don't know quite what to make of Pater. Is he superficial, or does he feel shy even of me? But dropping that, I committed one error in my desire to make a real friendship. I switched over and tried to get at him by developing it into a more intimate relation, whereas I should have explored all other possibilities. He longs to be loved, and I can see that he's beginning to be more and more in love with me. He gets satisfaction out of our meetings, whereas they have just the effect of making me want to try it out with him again. And yet, I don't seem able to touch on the subjects that I'm so longing to bring out into the daylight. I drew Pater towards me far more than he realizes. Now he clings to me, and for the time being, I don't see any way of shaking him off and putting him on his own feet. When I realized that he could not be a friend for my understanding, I thought I would at least try to lift him up out of his narrow-mindedness and make him do something with his youth. For in its innermost depths, youth is lonelier than old age. I read this saying in some book, and I've always remembered it, and found it to be true. Is it true, then, that grown-ups have a more difficult time here than we do? No, I know it isn't. Older people have formed their opinions about everything and don't waver before they act. It's twice as hard for us young ones to hold our ground and maintain our opinions in a time when all ideals are being shattered and destroyed, when people are showing their worst side and do not know whether to believe in truth and right in God. Anyone who claims that the older ones have a more difficult time here certainly doesn't realize to what extent our problems weigh down on us, problems for which we are probably much too young, but which thrust themselves upon us continually until, after a long time, we think we've found a solution. But the solution doesn't seem able to resist the facts which reduce it to nothing again. That's the difficulty in these times. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us only to meet the horrible truth and be shattered. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals, because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them, because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder which will destroy us, too. I can feel the...
Sorry, boys and girls, I wanted to point out that quote. This is probably the quote that is most often shared by her just because what they're going through. She has hundreds of amazing quotes on being misunderstood or being a teenager or having issues with her mom, or she just has a lot of great quotes, a lot of great insights into life. But because she's a Jew going through the Holocaust and has been in hiding in fear of her life for just being a Jew, it is bewildering to me how she can still have the optimism to say, "Yet I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart." That is amazing. Her positivity is just such an example for us to follow. So I wanted to point that out. If you haven't done your character card yet, or you're doing the Anne Frank exhibition, this is great. Or the exhibit, excuse me. All right, let's keep going.
Sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come out all right. That this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. Yours, Anna. Friday, 21 July, 1944. Dear Kitty, now I am getting really hopeful. Now things are going well at last. Yes, really, they're going well. Super news. An attempt has been made on Hitler's life, and not even by Jewish communists or English capitalists this time, but by a proud German general. And what's more, he's a count and still quite young. The Fuhrer's life was saved by divine providence, and unfortunately he managed to get off with just a few scratches and burns. A few officers and generals who were with him have been killed and wounded. The chief culprit was shot. Anyway, it certainly shows that there are lots of officers and generals who are sick of the war and would like to see Hitler descend into a bottomless pit. When they've disposed of Hitler, their aim is to establish a military dictator who will make peace with the Allies. Then they intend to rearm and start another war in about 20 years' time. Perhaps the divine power tarried on purpose in getting him out of the way, because it would be much easier and more advantageous to the Allies if the impeccable Germans kill each other off. It'll make less work for the Russians and the English, and they'll be able to begin rebuilding their own towns all the sooner. But still, we're not that far yet, and I don't want to anticipate the glorious events too soon. Still, you must have noticed, this is all sober reality, and I'm in quite a matter-of-fact mood today. For once, I'm not jabbering about high ideals. And what's more, Hitler has even been so kind as to announce to his faithful, devoted people that from now on, everyone in the armed forces must obey the Gestapo, and that any soldier who knows that one of his superiors was involved in this low, cowardly attempt upon his life may shoot the same on the spot, without court-martial. What a perfect shambles it's going to be. Little Johnny's feet begin hurting him during a long march. He's snapped at by his boss, the officer. Johnny grabs his rifle and cries out, "You wanted to murder the Fuhrer, so there's your reward." One bang, and the proud chief who dared to tick off little Johnny has passed into eternal life. Or is it eternal death? In the end, whenever an officer finds himself up against a soldier or having to take the lead, he'll be wetting his pants from anxiety, because the soldiers will dare to say more than they do. Do you gather a bit what I mean, or have I been skipping too much from one subject to another? I can't help it. The prospect that I may be sitting on school benches next October makes me feel far too cheerful to be logical. Oh, dearie me, hadn't I just told you that I didn't want to be too hopeful? Forgive me. They haven't given me the name Little Bundle of Contradictions all for nothing. Yours, Anna.
I just love how she writes. There is an example of figurative language in here. She uses she uses irony, verbal irony, when she says Hitler has even been so kind as to announce, he's not, that's obviously sarcasm because she means the opposite of what she's saying. I just wanted to point out, and I forget who it was. I want to say it was Matthew, but I'm not sure. But one of you guys drew the picture for our timeline in class about the day that there was the assassination attempt on Hitler's life. And as we were researching it, it happened this date. Well, around this date. It happened, probably not exactly this day, but there was an attempt on his life. Obviously he didn't die. He was spared. So it's the end of July. They were found August 4th. So had that been successful, then there was a really good chance that she might have survived and not been found after all. Now, again, I can't predict the future had that happened, but it would have been a fortuitous event if he had perished through the assassination attempt. And right here, she's trying not to be too hopeful. One of the answers that we answered earlier this week was, how do we know that the climax is coming? Or that, well, it was a question about the climax. Is that the conflict was she was unsure of her future. After D-Day, she feels much more hopeful. She has hope again because, wow, the English are here, they're getting closer, and it's obvious that they're getting a foothold into the war. So they're finally starting to have a little bit of hope, or even just allowing themselves to have hope. And so she's saying over here, I can't help it, but the idea that I might be sitting on a school bench next October makes me feel too cheerful to be logical. So, again, she's trying to keep her hope in check. She doesn't want to be disappointed. All right, let's continue.
Tuesday, 1 August 1944. Dear Kitty, little bundle of contradictions. That's how I ended my last letter, and that's how I'm going to begin this one. A little bundle of contradictions. Can you tell me exactly what it is? What does contradiction mean? Like so many words, it can mean two things. Contradiction from without and contradiction from within. The first is the ordinary, not giving in easily, always knowing best, getting in the last word. Enfin, all the unpleasant qualities for which I'm renowned. The second nobody knows about. That's my own secret. I've already told you before that I have, as it were, a dual personality. One half embodies my exuberant cheerfulness, making fun of everything, my high-spiritedness, and above all, the way I take everything lightly. This includes not taking offense at a flirtation, a kiss, an embrace, a dirty joke. This side is usually lying in wait, and pushes away the other which is much better, deeper and purer. You must realize that no one knows Anna's better side, and that's why most people find me so insufferable. Certainly I'm a giddy clown for one afternoon, but then everyone's had enough of me for another month. Really, it's just the same as a love film is for deep-thinking people. Simply a diversion, amusing just for once, something which is soon forgotten. Not bad, but certainly not good. I loathe having to tell you this, but why shouldn't I, if I know it's true anyway? My lighter, superficial side will always be too quick for the deeper side of me, and that's why it will always win. You can't imagine how often I've already tried to push this Anna away, to cripple her, to hide her, because after all, she's only half of what's called Anna. But it doesn't work, and I know, too, why it doesn't work. I'm awfully scared that everyone who knows me, as I always am, will discover that I have another side, a finer and better side. I'm afraid they'll laugh at me, think I'm ridiculous and sentimental, not take me seriously. I'm used to not being taken seriously, but it's only the light-hearted Anna that's used to it, and can bear it. The deeper Anna is too frail for it. Sometimes, if I really compel the good Anna to take the stage for a quarter of an hour, she simply shrivels up as soon as she has to speak, and lets Anna number one take over, and before I realize it, she has disappeared. Therefore, the nice Anna is never present in company, has not appeared one single time so far, but almost always predominates when we're alone. I know exactly how I'd like to be, how I am, too, inside. But alas, I'm only like that for myself. And perhaps that's why... No, I'm sure it's the reason why I say I've got a happy nature within, and why other people think I've got a happy nature without. I am guided by the pure Anna within, but outside I'm nothing but a frolicsome little goat who's broken loose. As I've already said, I never utter my real feelings about anything, And that's how I've acquired the name of chaser after boys, flirt, know-all, reader of love stories. The cheerful Anna laughs about it, gives cheeky answers, shrugs her shoulders indifferently, behaves as if she doesn't care, but, oh dearie me, the quiet Anna's reactions are just the opposite. If I'm to be quite honest, then I must admit that it does hurt me, that I try terribly hard to change myself, but that I'm always fighting against a more powerful enemy. A voice sobs within me. There you are. That's what's become of you. You're uncharitable, you look supercilious and peevish. People dislike you, and all because you won't listen to the advice given you by your own better half. Oh, I would like to listen, but it doesn't work. If I'm quiet and serious, everyone thinks it's a new comedy, and then I have to get out of it by turning it into a joke. Not to mention my own family, who are sure to think I'm ill, make me swallow pills for headaches and nerves, feel my neck and my head to see whether I'm running a temperature, ask if I'm constipated, and criticize me for being in a bad mood. I can't keep that up. If I watch to that extent, I start by getting snappy, then unhappy, and finally I twist my heart round again so that the bad is on the outside and the good is on the inside, and keep on trying to find a way of becoming what I would so like to be, and what I could be if there weren't any other people living in the world. Yours, Anna.
Those are the last words that she writes, and I think it's fitting. She's writing about the two parts of her. It's very deep, and she's very analytical of herself. So I'm wondering if you guys can relate to that. Do we have an outside version of ourselves and then an inside version of ourselves? Are we different? Are we the same? I think sometimes that's true for me. I don't know if maybe that is for you guys too. You are welcome to read the afterword. We are going to do that on Tuesday. It starts out with the history of World War I, which is what we reviewed before we started the book, so it'll be familiar to you. And then it goes into what happened to each of the inhabitants of the secret annex. So I pray that you just reflect a little bit as we finish the book and enjoy her words. I don't know about you, but I feel like I really know her because she's just been so honest in sharing her feelings. So, all right, well, we will continue with the ending tomorrow. And right now that I'm recording, I have a Zoom party, so I will do the answers in the next video for Monday.